Let's Talk Tunnelling is produced by XRJV and proudly sponsored by DC Adams Group, Why Safety Matters. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Tunnelling. I'm your host, Ellis Adams, and today's guest is Andrew Churcher. Kia ora, Andy.
Tēnā koe, Dallas.
Thanks very much for coming on. I appreciate it. All the way from New Zealand, Waihi, so thank you very much. I'll get you to introduce yourself if you don't mind, Andy, please.
Yeah, Andy Churcher, tunneler. Worked in different places around the area and done a lot of tunnelling in Australia, a little bit in New Zealand. Yeah, so.
Good. I've known you quite a few years. I know I grew up with your kids in Cromwell and know your family and you know my family very well. So I appreciate your time and support over the years with what I've been doing. So Andrew, I'm gonna hit you up straight away and just ask you where you're originally from, just for the people back home and people that you've worked with in Australia here as well and all over the world in tunnelling. So if you can just give us a bit of an idea of where you originally come from, and then we'll get into a bit of tunnelling stuff if you don't mind.
Yeah, kia ora, mate. Born in Dannevirke in Southern Hawke's Bay. Brought up in the King Country, around logging, sawmilling background, and got involved in that after finishing school. Stuff like that, yeah.
No, good one. And keen fisherman too, eh?
Yeah, I'm not a very good fisherman, but I'm keen on it.
No, good one. Hey, let's talk tunnelling then, eh? First tunnelling job, and run us through all your jobs, please, if you don't mind. And I'm going to have a beer for you too.
Yeah, my first tunnelling job was in 1977 at Port Royal Tunnel for the Ministry of Works. It was a rail tunnel. The original tunnel that was built in the 1800s was brick line and was through mudstone, and it was starting to squeeze in. And the introduction of containers, made the loads a lot bigger. So they actually had to go that slow that they were touching in places. So they decided to run a tunnel along beside the other one, so they didn't shut the main trunk line down. So that was originally going to be a drill and blast job, but being mudstone, it kept blocking all the steels and stuff from what I was told. So they decided to get a Dosco radiator from the UK. And it was a coal cutting machine. I've never seen another one like it, but probably the guys that were older than me and maybe even a little bit younger would have worked with them at some stage somewhere else. But this thing was a bit different to what we use today. It had a cutter head, very similar, totally different styles of picks. And the chain conveyor actually ran around the outside of the apron and picked the dirt up as you drove forward and went up around the back and then dropped onto the conveyor. And the conveyor itself was, actually the whole tunnel was timber and sets. So the conveyor went back up and we had a running conveyor that was hooked on a monorail and went along the back of the sets, and we could load 5 12-yard skips at a time in the loco, and you just had a guy there with a switch and turn the conveyor off and you'd move to the next mud car. And then it'd go down later onto the switch and the next rake would come in. So, and you just extended, took one piece from the conveyor, from the monorail up to the front, and the fitter welded it onto the set, and then just kept joining it along. We just kept chugging along like that. And it also had where the cutter, the pineapple fitted onto the boom, it actually had a turret that would rise up. It would come up a couple of meters, and you could cut the height of the tunnel. And it was only a 42-ton machine, but we could cut 7 meters with it. And it was all mudstone. When the stuff was hard, it was hard, and when it was soft, it was crap. You have to put timbers under to stop it from sinking and stuff. But being a rail tunnel, you couldn't get anything in behind like the systems we use today. So that's what they come up with. They worked all right too, we had our moments, but it was a great little machine because we could cut a metre round in an hour and stand a set. We 8-hour shifts, then we went to 6-hour shifts because it was too wet. And you cut it. And sometimes Mark Abel was our operator, and he he actually cut a metre and a half round. We stood a set in an hour. So the other guys had stood 3 or 4 sets, but no one beat that record. So I think, so yeah, there's a lot of milestones in that job. Yeah.
Would have been unreal for your first job, though. Like, what sort of role did you have when you first turned up? Because you came from the forestry and then straight into tunnelling or early 20s. So what was your first role on that job and on that project?
My first role was driving the dozer on the tip head, clearing the tip head. And the tip head was just muck and you couldn't move, and they were having problems. So they said, when they gave me this job, they said, what we want you to do is figure out how you can do it. So we left the drain hole through the middle and just kept trying to push the dry stuff up and working it over and getting away. We managed to do that, but I hounded the tunnel manager, Mark Robinson, for a job underground, because I used to go in there when there was, I was in Wonderland. I thought, man, what a place, what a deadly job, and wide-eyed and googly-eyed, and he said, no way, you come here to drive the dozer and that's where you're going. So one day Mark was sitting under the discharge pipes, and they were held up by number 8 wire, and they broke half full of mud and come down and snapped his leg, broke his leg. So guy you would know too, Dave Loach, took over. So I hit Dave up, and Dave said no, and then kept hitting him up, and he goes, so he told me to start night shift one night, so that's how I got underground.
Yeah.
So, and I was just a new chum, didn't know anything. No one would show you anything. They'd be all yelling and screaming, jumping around. So, I just got that pissed off. I just stood there and wouldn't do anything. And John Stubbings, I don't know if you know, run John Stubbings, but he was one of the experienced guys on the crew, and he came up to me and said, boy, do you want to learn, or are you just going to stand there? I said, yeah, I want to learn, but no one's going to show me. And he goes, come with me. So he showed me how to stand sets and how to timber, and do all that sort of stuff, and give me a couple of cracks on the road here, there. And, he was a great guy, and, think the world of John, still do keep in contact with him now and again. So he's over in Western Australia. So that's how I sort of got to learn. So they got pissed off with me around, so they taught me, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, that's good. And then, carry on, sorry.
Yeah, so then once the tunnelling had finished, we started taking the invert out, and that was our job, the face crew. So we went through and took the invert and laid the concrete and made the nib walls and that, and we had a form in there so to put the drains and then the rail bed and everything. So we formed all of that, and as we went through, and then the concrete profile form coming behind and bolted it to the concrete wall, and then they poured the concrete behind it, tooted the boards up, tooted the ends up, and poured concrete, and we just chugged along like that. And then after that it was grouting, and as you do, and other stuff. And yeah, so that was sort of about it. I started there, we only had 3 shifts, 3 8-hour shifts, and then it was getting wet, and most of it was water from conveyors and the spray off the head and out, and it just ended the crap. So the boys were pushing for 6-hour shifts, getting paid for 12. So we managed to do that. So they started a 4th shift up, and all the young guys and all the useless guys ended up on that shift. So, and I was one of them. So, and I landed the leading hands job. And then our shift boss guy, Gilwee Uppy, we're ready to stand a set and timber over, and he was standing out in front holding a lar up, and I knocked the wedge out to put the lar up, and then I went to hit the other one. He said, don't hit that, and the hammer was on its way, and the wedge come out, and down come these big girlies and skittled him, and he hung around there all day for nearly a whole shift, and so, man, I got to go, and never saw him for 3 months, and now I end up being the shift boss. But so it wasn't a very proud day of mine, but young and eager to go and not sussing things out, just being gung-ho, I guess. So that was one of the things that I'm not too proud of, but that's the way it happened. So anyway, once that was all over, well, like me in the job, we just moved around and tried to get other jobs, and I landed a job in the coal mine in Benidorm. Was there for a little while, and coal wasn't I didn't like coal much, didn't like it at all. Well, it was a job, that was all. I didn't have the passion like tunnelling did, so I stayed around there for a few years, and then I ended up, I think I got a hold of the old man down in the Clyde Power Project, and because him and I had played King Country Maori rugby together and played against each other, and he was telling me he was going down, and I said, "What's going down there?" And he said, "Oh, it's pretty hard because they're getting really just about all manned up." So I got in touch with Dave Loach, and Dave turned around and jacked me up a job. So I jumped in the PA box, and away I went. Me and a guy, Mervyn Hughes, we went down there and stayed down there for a few years with the Ministry of Works. Ended up in the concrete gang on the powerhouse. Did a bit of tunnelling with your dad and the other boys for Lakin and crew, and ended up having to go back to the powerhouse. And then when all that was finished, we ended up Downers turned up, so I ended up getting a job with Downers on the stabilisation work. Most of that was a big job. It was 18 kilometres. Or 90%, 95% of it was all air leg. We had one little boomer jumbo and a little road header there. And, so it was all drill and blast. And we were following, they knew where all the faults were in the hills because the mountains were full of water, and they were worried about when the dam was flooded, they changed the water table, and it would squeeze up through the cracks in the mountains, and where the water table was sort of 80, 90 metres above lake level, above river level, that this water would squeeze up, and the artesians were there with the pressure coming up. We would push the side of the mountains out and come down, slide into the lake and create a big tidal wave and go over the dam and wipe Clyde and Alexandra out, or come back up the lake and all our Cromwells. So we went in there, and they knew where the wells were, so we just went in there and drilled and blasted and followed the faults, and then did little drill chambers, and the drillers came in and just aimed their drills to the artesian wells and drained all the water out before the lake was filled up. So that was all about, yeah. So there was, at that time, I think Ian Abbott told me that that as far as headings went, that was the biggest job in the world. We had 10 headings going at once. There was a lot of guys there. We all learned a lot. There was everything going there. There was some pretty horrid ground there, I can tell you that. But hey, there was a lot of experienced guys too, and they pulled you through it and told you how to work it. And there's some good men there, real good men. The likes of Bob Chicky, Guy Smallman, Marty Harvey. There's heaps of guys around. Johnny Owers was super. Jock Smith, he was our general. He was the man. He was just onto everything. That guy. There was heaps of guys. And they were, a lot of them still around now. A lot of them are gone. A lot of them are retired. So, but yeah, they taught us a lot. Yeah, good guys.
Yeah, well, that's obviously where I met you and grew up, like I said, with your kids. And Cromwell to me is somewhere where, I'm proud to say I grew up in. It was a great little town, great area too, just outside it too, with all the pig hunting and fishing, and obviously being able to go to any coast you wanted within 3 to 4 hours. So, yeah, good work-life balance back then.
It was a great place, man. It was a great place, yeah.
Yeah, no, good.
Yeah.
So then, so what happened after Clyde for you, Andy?
Oh, I ended up in Australia. I got a hold of, actually Matt Murray was working in the Blue Mountains for McConnell Dell, and they were looking for people, and he got in touch with me, asked me if I wanted to go, and I said, oh, yeah, so I ended up there with Landis and Benny and Matt Murray, John Wilson, Miles Crow, all those guys. But I was on the road header crew doing what they called the Wentworth Carrier, and like Wilson and them guys were all on the Landis on the TBM. They were driving the main tunnel. We had a 1,200 metre drive out to one of I think it was a lonely old toilet back out in the national park somewhere. So we were out in there and with this little 65 road header. And so there was all sorts of stuff going on there, mate. She was a high-powered job, man. There was some wicked records there. Man, I was supposed to arrive there in May of 94, and I didn't go. And they were just starting to cut around May, I think it was. And then I arrived in the end of September, and they were already at they had their 9K mark, and they were just smashing it, man. They just you just look at the back when you come to work, look at the stacker where the stuff was coming off the conveyor, and if it was, if it was small, they'd either just started, or if she was high, they would just go, and they'd just get higher and higher, they would just, those guys poured the meters out, Yeah, no, she's massive, Yeah, met a lot of good guys. John Tiefer, met John Tiefer there, still friends with John, still catch up with him. Landis, Mark Burke. There's a few guys still hanging around,
Good.
Yeah, so yeah, no, it was
So you did a bit of work in Sydney, though, eh? So that was the start of your a few years here in Sydney.
Yeah, I think went from there to did a little bit of a stint back in the coal mine just to tie things over for a month or two, and then ended up getting a job at Algas in the underground gas caverns there. So started there, shaft sinking. We had two shafts, we had a 6 meter and a 4 meter. I was in the 6 meter shaft, and it was another 8-hour shifts, and 150 odd meters we went down, just drilling by hand and blasting, and we had a little stage hanging inside the shaft, and had a cactus grab on it, and he operated cactus grab, and it would come down and pick the mud up and by the rock, and then drop it into the kibble, and it would go out on the main hoist. That's where Landis' father, Manu Winnie-Tana, so I met Manu. He was the one of the winder drivers, him and Buddha were the winder drivers. Yeah, they were great guys, yeah. Had a lot of time for money. And Buddha's been a great guy. So, the funny thing about their job was, wasn't funny, it was quite interesting, because when they started talking to the project manager, and he said, it was the first underground gas caverns to be built in the Southern Hemisphere, and if they were successful, they would do it again. So they had 4 big caverns laying side by side. They were 270 meters long, I think 11 meters high and 14 meters wide, all drill and blast with jumbos, and they're all interconnecting top and bottom. And then above that, about 15, 20 meters above the caverns, there was a little drive that went out over, and the little fingers come out off it. And then basically what they were going to do is when it was finished, they would plug the shaft off up to that level. Then they would flood the shaft full of water and would go out over the caverns and would saturate the ground. And when they pumped the LPG into the ground, it would keep the water would keep the gas in, and the gas would keep the water out. Constant pressure. So, and that's what they'd done in the Northern Hemisphere, but they'd done it in real competent rock, and we were in mudstone, so we had our fair share of problems there as well. So, but they got through it. It was a slow job, and I left about halfway through it and went to the Eastern Distributor for McConnell Dowell again, and I think Benny was there. There's a few guys there. Mark Beck was shift boss here. That's where Ronnie Shaw's first had his first job in Australia when he came over. Him and a few guys came over from Waihi, from the gold mine, and that shut down, so they came to Aussie, and Ronnie ended up being our radiator operator. Yeah, so Becky was on another ship. He was running one crew. And we were doing a driver's triangle. We were doing the access drive down, and then we got the big parade. They bought the parade, and then that, I think there's a photo I sent to you of it, looking down on it. And then they did the main drive through. So, and that was all rock bolts and shotcrete. And I think we got up to 14 meter rock bolts, pushed in by hand, graded by hand. It's, some challenging jobs, but, it was good. You learned a lot, and we had good crews. Bob Gowing, Guy Forrester, he was the superintendent there, and then they brought Bob Gowing back from Thailand, and I think the client put the pressure on. I don't think it had anything to do with Kai's ability or anything like that. It was just that I think his name was on the tender records, and they said, well, he's on the records and we want him back. Bob didn't want to come back, but he come back, and he made a difference. He was old Bob. Bob is Bob. He's a legend in the game.
Yeah, I've been after him to come on actually. So yeah, I hope he bloody does. To be honest, yeah, it'd be interesting to listen to him and his stories.
Yeah, I can tell you a couple of stories about Bob when we get around it. But I liked old Bob. He was a man's man. There was nothing mealy mouth about Bob. But he was a good, honest man and treated you whether you liked getting your bum kicked or not. He was, if you got it, you got it. But hey, it was 5 minutes later, it was all forgotten. Sit down and have a beer with you after the job and have a yarn and have a laugh. No,
well, I've had a few discussions with a few people, especially about supers and their makeup and all that too. So he must have almost originated, because I've had a few people like that too.
Yeah, well, Shane took, I reckon they cracked the mold when they made that guy, I reckon.
Oh, well, that's all good.
Yeah, no, all good, mate, yeah. Yeah, so did the Eastern Distributor. I'm trying to remember where I went after that. Tunks Park. I think I went to Northside Storage Tunnel at Tunks Park and under Tony Robinson. That's why he was our super. Craig Jury was the foreman. That's another guy, mate, that is good at his job, Craig Jury. Very, very smart guy, man. And could do anything. Amazing guy, really, And then we went down there and we were doing the decline down and cut the storage cavern. And we did the access drive. We did 3 launch chambers. So we were launching 3 TVMs from one site. That was the first time it was ever done by all accounts, they tell us. So we had a 6-meter Robbins machine, which was buried in the ground. We had a 6.3 Worth machine that was going out to meet the boys coming from Manly. They had a 6.5. And then we had a 3.8, which is a machine that I first went on, and we were going 7 Ks up to Lane Cove. Yeah, anyway, I think. Yeah, so then we did that anyway. So the 6-meter machine, they had some really pretty bad ground. They had some big falls and a lot of inexperienced guys. And Mark Aiken was one of the ship bosses there. Mark's pretty shrewd, and he sorted his guys out. But yeah, once they got going, once they got through that bad ground and all that crap that was falling in, man, that thing just took off. It was far superior to the Worth machines, that old gill. So it was a good machine, yeah, and they did really well. So, and then, we did all the whole through and everything else. And I think once we did all of that, I went, and that job was there. If anyone hasn't explained to you, it was they wanted it done before the 2000 Olympics, because there was all of the overflow that come out over that area. I think it was in the Willoughby area that they would just go straight into the sea at Tunks Park there. And then, so this was diverted back down into the tunnel, and they would store all these millions and millions megalitres of sewer in the ground for a couple of weeks, sorry. And and then they would treat it at North Head, and that's where John Wilson, Phil Aiken, Marty Harvey, they were over there, and they were building this big spiral decline and big pump station. It was a massive job, and they were doing that over there. And then they launched their 6.5 machine that came 10 Ks towards us, and then our 6.3 machine went to meet them, and we only went about 3 Ks with that to meet them. So it was about 18 Ks or something, at that job. All TVM tunnel with plastic rock bolts and rock bolt plates, because they didn't want them all to rot out with all the acids in the sewage and all that sort of stuff. So it all worked, but only shock ready where we had to. So that was on time. And when I finished there, I went to work for Nigel Poyo in the M5. Under our super he was our general, and worked for Matt Murray at Chirellis. He had a shaft there. We did a shaft, and then went down and did the ventilation drive into the main tunnel. Yeah, we did that. Oh, Mark Beck and I, we were the ship bosses there. And, yeah, once we did that, then I ended up in the main job doing different works for Nigel and just helping out here and there where I could, But that was just a pretty straightforward job, big road headers, rock walls, shock bridge, But yeah, good job. It was another good job. They're all pretty good. So, still trying to remember what went after that. This is all in Sydney. I think there was a lag in between jobs, and I ended up back in the coal mine for a couple of months. And John Wilson was down working for Allied down in Appin. So I went down there with him and ended up breaking my finger and going on compo. And so that was me there. And then my brother had started a company up out at Mudgee at Uland Colliery, and I ended up going out there for 6 months until the tunnelling started again. Then one of my mates, George Warner, he was working with us, and then things are slowing down. He wanted to get back to Sydney, so Tony Robinson, he was doing the cable tunnel for Walter Mining, Walter Construction, and so I took George down here to meet Robert and introduce him, and he said, George, go and sign up in the office and fill your thing. And he said, what are you doing? I said, just waiting to get back to work. And he goes, well, there's a job here for you if you want it. So rang the brother up and he said, I'll take it. He said, we're a bit unsure at the moment. So I went to work for Robert in the cable tunnel. We had a little 200 road header there and one little truck and 4 guys and 2 shifts. And best job I've been on, mate.
Yeah, wow.
Great bunch of guys. Craig Jury was the other shift boss. Ron Shaw's was his road head operator. And I had Ricky Lazzarato as my operator. Very, very good operator. And Brett Pengelly and Brett Lang on my crew. And CJ was our Craig Jarvis. He was our gantry man, pulling crap out of the shaft. So, yeah, we had a great little job. We used to work through there, start Monday night shift, and we'd go through to Friday night, and then we would start cleaning up, blow the floor down, put the pins in, get all ready for concrete. Saturday morning, the boys would come and do the concreting and do the invert, and then away we'd go again, and just kept doing that. And they wanted to stop doing the concreting because the engineers and the project manager wanted. I said, look, man, we only got 1 truck and we haven't got another one. If it breaks down because we're running it over rough ground, we're going to be out of work. We're going to be sitting for ages. So I think Robert put his foot down and said, we're going to stick with the concreting, so that's what we did, and it worked out good. Yeah, it was a great little job. Yeah. Where did I go after that?
I think you ended up PRL, was it?
Yeah, PRL, yeah. Yeah, worked over there. Got a superintendent's role. Didn't suit me, didn't really understand what to do. Got my ass kicked off there and ended up working for Phil Aiken and the TBMs on the same project. And ended up on the TBM. 7.2 Robbins was working under, I can't remember his name, big guy, big Aussie guy. Then he left, and then Darren Wendlock took over. Worked for him for a while. And then Brett Lang had finished up, and Phil needed a shift boss, so he asked me to go down. I was actually on Mark's crew at that time, and then asked me to go and look after him until he could get a shift boss. So I went down and ended up staying on that machine, and that's where we started pumping out a few good meters and stuff like that, So one of the things that Phil said to me when I went down, he says, these guys don't know their potential. They don't know how good they are, So you got to get it out of them, bring it out. And I said, oh, yeah, So I got down there, and, yeah, they were just they were just doing their job, and there was certainly where we beat everything into shape, got things running, and those guys never looked back. They just smashed it, and we had some great fun there, and I think it was we had guys that, that were working for Hock Thief and the German side of it, and there weren't very many happy people. I had the feeling, and I think Phil did, and everyone had a feeling that it wasn't going to be very long. There was going to be a mass exodus of guys walking off there. And so we went away for Christmas, come back. That's when I officially took over the crew, and Phil and I were having a talk there one day. He said, I told these guys to step back, otherwise we're going to have big troubles, So they stepped back, and then the boys just kept coming forward, and away we went. And we worked out little things like, Phil brought in his system was, day shift, we'd work on 11-hour shifts. Day shift, you'd come in and would do maintenance, would change 3 cutters. Every day would change 3 cutters, 4 at the max and no more. So they knew how much the cutters were wearing. So we'd do 3, and then we'd stop the machine up. And so sometimes, when Ross Gleason was ahead of us, and then, man, he was hammering the meters out, and you'd come in, and the old machine 9 times out of 10 was as bald as my head. There wasn't any supplies on it, and we used to turn around and have to work our butts off and load this machine up in these few hours, and then get cutting, and then Ross would come in on the night shift and hammer it again. So, and he kept doing that, and he was the benchmark to beat, and he had a good crew, real good crew, and so we were sitting there one day, and I said to the boys, we got to start working a bit smarter. So, so we started our toolboxes, and we'd have our 5-10 minute toolboxes. And then I said to him, every time you walk up to the bolting deck, take some chemicals, take a bag of washers, take a bag of nuts, just wherever you go, take the stuff with you like they do in the mines. And we managed to stock our machine up and keep it stocked without having to spend hours and hours carrying stuff backwards and forwards, So we gained probably 2 hours there just by doing that. And then all we had to do was take the mesh up and the rock bolts, or if we needed bolts, we'd take them up by hand. But most of the bulk of the stuff was lifted up by the winches and stuff. So, we saved a lot of time there. And, we got it going. And, Ross, I remember one night there we cut 90 metres and I think it was 22 hours. So we were on a day shift, and we're on a day shift, and we loaded up and we started cutting about 12 o'clock. I think we finished about, them days, I think it might have been 7 or 8 o'clock, and we'd cut 35 metres. Ross came in and hammered it again and got 45 metres or something like that anyway. So it ended up to be 90 metres, because we're big bonuses, mate, talking like $1,800 bonuses, stuff like that, and $2,000 bonuses. And so Ross and I, we had a good talk. We sat down, and the day shift would stock the machine up, and night shift would smash it, and then that's what we did. And we made some good money out of it. Good money. I tallied up, I think made $35,000 in about 7 months, I think, just from production bonus. So, and then we're getting towards the end of it, and everyone was wanting, because Ross had the record. I think he had 54 metres or something like that, or 55 metres. And we turned around, and I said to the boys, I rung Mark up, and I said, we weren't far from hole through. And I said to him, where's all this? Because there was some real black mudstone ahead of us, and it was really dusty. And Mark said, you couldn't see where you're going. I said, how far we got to go to the stuff? And he said, what changes are you? And I said, we're blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, it looks like you got about 60 metres. And he said, once you see it coming through the fingers, you'll see the dust coming through, So I said to the boys, you want to have a crack at this, And they said, hell yeah, we're going to have a go. It's our last chance. So away we went, and we just give it hell, and we're just, the boys, as we got further and further and further into the shift, they'd be running up, how much we got, and we're getting up around the 40-metre mark, and 42, 45, and boys were buzzing, and the concrete was coming in. We were laying invert at that time as well. And then getting up towards the end of the night, and I think it was about 4 in the morning, and both the conveyor went down. And 4, 6, no, it must have been about 3, because anyway, it was about 5 in the morning, and the conveyor came on, and away we went again, and the guidance went out. So we didn't have any guidance, and I said to the operator, I said, are we cutting straight? We've got to go around the corner? He said, no, we're just cutting straight. I said, and you keep it straight? He goes, yes, I keep it going, So away we went right to the end of the shift. So pulled out the shift plod, took it upstairs, and coming to work on Monday morning. Oh, Ross was actually, that was Saturday. Yeah, Ross came and he was loading up for Sunday night, and he was looking around, because they're all very observant. He's looking around and he goes, how much did you cut? I said, about 50 metres. And he's looked at me, and he's taking note. There's nothing on the machine. There was nothing there at all. We used everything. Everybody conveyor. And he turned around and he goes, oh, yeah. And so he waltzes away, gets his boys. They start loading up the machine. And so I came in on Monday day shift. Yeah, it was a night shift, Friday night shift. Yeah, and Monday day shift. And but he, I forget the guy's name. He was tunnel manager, I think. Anyway, German guy called me in the office and he says, how much did you cut? And I said, I'm not sure, mate. I said, the guidance went out a couple of hours before knock-off. I said, so we just kept in the straight line and kept going. He said, what do you think you cut? I said, about 60 metres. And he says, that's exactly what you cut. And it was 7.2 metre machine, a lot of distance to cover. If we didn't have that breakdown, we would have got we're cutting 7 metres an hour. So we would have cut another, 2 hours, 14 metres, 75 metres thereabouts, But that's tunnelling. But that's the, I suppose, the competitiveness in it, Ross was holding all the records and we were trying to get at him. And, he came, the boys said to me after he found out what we'd got, he comes in on the Monday night shift and he said to the operator, get out. Or, do you know Robbie Mate? Robbie Mate was telling me he was the operator, and Robbie Mate says, get out. You've been in there all this time. My turn to operate. He said he bogged the head. He did other things. He was getting all hacked off, And, man, they tried for days, and he said to me after about 3 days, you got me. I goes, oh, mate, that's good, no worries, But always had someone to chase, and we always chased Ross, and, he pushed that machine, and he got some good meters, and he was a good guy to work with. A lot of people had a lot of not so good things to say about him, but Ross and I got on good, and we worked as a team, and we got some massive meters and made some good money, So a lot of respect for Ross and his crew. Yeah, good guys. Had some good guys on the crew, some guys that were pretty quiet, but probably the guy that stands out in that crew was probably Julian Orman. He was up on the conveyor deck, and he was a guy you never, ever had to go and see, man. Sometimes I'd go up there maybe once a fortnight because everything was just in order and he was just so professional. And I used to send all the young guys up to him, and, man, they were in a lather of sweat with old Julian. But, he taught them well. And, he's a great guy. Yeah, awesome dude. We had a lot of other fellas too, but, he was sort of, for me, the standout guy, Yeah, so, that was a real good job. Yeah.
Good one. I heard about that too, and I suppose I was on the Cross City Tunnel at the same time. But as you know, tunneling's a small little tight-knit family, so you used to always hear things. And then Dad ended up there as well for a little bit of a short stint. Yeah. But that's great to hear. And like I said, I'd heard about a few things that happened over there, but thank you very much for sharing that. That's awesome. Appreciate it. But yeah, it's good.